What's up, humans? You're listening to the What is Humans podcast with Shane Strunk and Dennis Kluba. Make sure to follow us on our social media pages, on Instagram at What is Humans podcast, on TikTok at What is Humans podcast, and on YouTube at What is Humans podcast. Today, Dennis and I are discussing keeping score. Enjoy. Hey.
You're listening to the What is Humans podcast. If this is your first time listening, the What is Humans podcast is a mental and physical and spiritual podcast to work on personal development between myself, Shane Strunk, and Dennis Kluba. And hopefully you at home can relate to some of the topics that we talk about in our own lives. And most importantly, we're experts in almost nothing.
What's up, dude?
Nothing much. Almost botched that intro there.
You kind of did. It's all right. We're rolling through it.
I kind of forgot what was happening there for a second. That's okay.
Yeah, it's like 200 in. It never gets easier. But it's good conversations. And what are we talking about today, though?
We are talking about keeping score. Specifically, it's kind of interesting. This topic you brought to me really just based off of a song title, but the song really has nothing to do with that, right?
Yeah, the song title, it's kind of a sad song. It's called Referees Don't Fall in Love, but that it just like was an interesting, like what the hell does that mean? Like, why are referees supposed to fall in love? We're calling this podcast Keeping Score. But the idea is that like referees are obviously not playing the game, right? So referees can't win.
Yeah.
They can't lose. They can't be hurt.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of a larger metaphor for life, specifically love. And we're going to call it keeping score and really just dance kind of around those ideas of what it means to, play in life, what it means to try new things and not to keep score.
Yeah. I think that the big distinction in this topic, which when we get kind of into that second layer, got me thinking more was I think a lot of times in regards to this idea, we think a lot about the players and then spectators. And it reminds me of, that poem or that idea of the man in the ring talking about,
Yeah, Theodore Roosevelt's quote.
Yes, completely. And but the difference, I think, between referees and spectators is that spectators a lot of times are watching in enjoyment of the people that are playing. And they can be, judgmental or say, Monday morning quarterback, I could have done better, right, et cetera. They could say that. But for the most part, if we're using the analogy, they're paying money to go watch the people playing. Versus the refs are in there, but like you said, they can't win, they can't lose, and they are legitimately keeping track of what other people are doing.
Yeah, making sure people are following the rules, making sure things go smoothly.
Yeah.
And I think it just relates to, I don't know, I've seen myself like worry about rules or am constantly like keeping score of my own, say it's material things or personal things, and I'm comparing to another. I'm, looking at, all these external things and living in comparison. And I think that if we do that so often, I guess we're not really focused on what we can control, how we can just fully be present and live our lives. What do you think, though?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I think for me, the biggest part of this idea is really about how important it is to get in the game. Whatever that game is for you, whatever your passions are, whatever that dream is, it's so important to just start playing regardless of what the rules are, who's already better at the game than you are. I can think so much as children, we go back to this a lot of like, that kind of innate childlike instinct is you just play as kids. You're not worried about, Tommy or Elaine who's down the street that's they're already better than you, or they're older, right? There's always going to be an older kid that's like better. You just play in your backyard kind of by your own rules.
Yeah.
You're not really worried about the ref. And then as you get going, you get into organized things, you need that, that structure. And I was going to say to you, when we're talking about getting in the game and referees, and we're talking about spectators, are those people necessary in life? And how do you, kind of become a player versus just like sitting on the sidelines and watching, or being the referee and keeping score?
Yeah, I would say that rules are important and needed. Referees are needed in sports.
Yeah.
And I don't think the idea is not to say we don't need those things. Mm-hmm. The idea is just to check your own behaviors and how you're living.
Yeah.
And sometimes you could be so worked up on, okay, am I following the rules to the T?
Yeah.
And from that, you're going to have this inertia or this hesitancy to begin, to try, to fail potentially.
Yeah.
And we would be, stuck because of that fear, because we need to know all the rules, or we're too busy keeping score.
Yeah.
Instead of taking some of your own risk and playing.
Completely. I think, like you said, those rules are necessary, and they're always going to be there. And the rule keepers are going to be there. And the people that are judging from the sideline are always going to be there. I think the challenge becomes, how can you at home or in whatever setting, like you said, just start? And almost when you're in other situations, right, push the boundaries, push whatever the rules are, or the things that we think we already know about, whether that's running a race or what we think we can do as individuals, and say, okay, I know that this is kind of out there. I'm going to push myself and or what's already expected of me further.
Yeah.
And then somebody can always rein me in. I can always get back.
You can always fail. You can always mess up.
Yeah.
We did a podcast on blind faith. We also called it like being naive, like naive confidence.
Yeah.
Of just, you have to try to see where you're at. Like you have to begin to find out if you're good at something.
Yeah.
Who knows? You could be lucky and win that game. Mm-hmm. Like all you can do is play the cards that you have to see where you are. So I guess that's kind of the idea we need to bring when trying these things.
Well, I think at the same time too, right? These rule keepers and the rules are set in place, obviously, so that there's safety, and that goes for business. It goes for a lot of different things. We kind of put in place so we don't get hurt physically in sports.
Yeah, or hurt others. Yeah,
exactly. But I also think that there's a reason that fouls exist. You're supposed to push the boundaries, a little bit, so somebody says, "Hey, that was you stepped on somebody's toes there. Just look out," etc. And for me, we'll get into a little bit of the whys, but this is something that I have struggled a lot with. I'd be interested to see what your, experience is, but I struggled a lot with this idea, despite being an athlete, but more in an after, post-athletic career, is there's this world where, in athletics, you're kind of like, it's a shared goal. And you're moving towards one thing, it's a championship or it's a win, etc. And we played soccer, so that's a very team-oriented sport. But when you kind of get after your post-athletic career, for me, it's been hard to think a little bit more, kind of follow the rules or the constructs that are set in place, especially within, business and team dynamics, and think a little bit more about, okay, how is this best serving me? How can I improve myself? And care a little bit less about the quote unquote rules, and think more of, okay, how can I push the boundaries on maybe doing work proactively that's not assigned to me?
Totally.
Maybe testing the waters on other jobs, industries, etc.
Yeah. To clarify, so you saying your experience that in the confines of, say, soccer, you've been able to thrive and know what the limits are and where to push yourself and where you might need to improve. Mm-hmm. But post school, post soccer, you just haven't had that structure or comfortability to try new things or to push yourself further. Or it's just something that you're still learning how to do.
I feel like, especially from my upbringing, whether that was school and soccer, my thing was so much like, hey, respect the rules. You know exactly where the line is. That's what it is. Your coach, your teacher is telling you, hey, these are how you be a great employee, be a great teammate, be a great student. And as you become an adult, it's more and more about, hey, okay, I understand how to be a good employee, I understand what's, but in order to continue to improve, you have to start pushing those boundaries, those rules, I feel like, to like improve yourself, but also think outside the box of what the company is doing.
Yeah. And I don't think it really means like it doesn't need to be rules.
Yeah.
I think rules were let's put more in a general term. It's more of like what the standard is.
Yeah.
The standard amount of work needed, hours worked, or the standard path, to a certain goal. There's thousands of ways to get from point A to point B.
Yeah.
So it's more pushing the boundaries on how you can make an impact on what your career is, what you're passionate about, what you're good at, and pushing those boundaries. Not necessarily, there are rules, yes, but I guess it's more standard ways of thinking, I think, is what you're hinting at.
Completely. Did you feel like as a kid, I'm interested to see versus now as an adult, or if it's the same, did you feel like you were a big bend the rules person as a kid, or were you more like stay in line?
I would say I definitely pushed the rules.
Yeah.
I think it was just I was so competitive and am so competitive that it's just, I found ways to figure out how to win. But at the same time, like if I did, break the rules, it was something that, I wouldn't be proud of. It'd be something that I'd be, ashamed of.
Yeah. I was going to say that too. I think it is interesting how maybe based on, upbringing and, kind of experience, that kind of, I feel, at least for me, meeting more and more people from different areas, different backgrounds, have a much easier time almost breaking those rules and getting, reprimanded, but, they understand the rule now.
Totally.
Then, like you said, I'm similar in that I did bend the rules, but I never wanted to be caught.
Right.
So embarrassed or so ashamed. But I think it's almost a little bit getting more comfortable with that idea of, hey, if you're breaking the rules, that means you're playing, you're learning. And I think when we say rules, it's the same thing, right? It's like standards. It's, the typical way to get from point A to point B. The point is that you're going and you're failing. And I think that as a kid, it's like the game or getting in the game is so easy to understand, right? It's grades. Everybody has the same grades, or everybody has the team that they're trying to make. When you're an adult, there becomes less and less of this structure or the game, and more is required of you as an adult you got to get in there.
Yeah, to be creative and solve problems.
Yes, completely.
So, I guess how do we want to go about not keeping score as much?
Yeah.
That way we can be more active and, let's just say, present, in our own lives and our own actions to grow how we want to grow.
Yeah. I'll throw something out there. We can. Okay. I don't know if we're going to start there. I don't know if we're going to middle end it, but I think a little bit back to being a kid, especially because I don't think that there are a lot of set rules for most jobs. Maybe, there are, but maybe that's not really fun, right? Or in your life. But it's a little bit about when you're comparing, you're using a set of standards that somebody told you is the right way to measure.
From your parents, your peers, whatever
material goods,
you've taken in,
money, whatever, trips. It's almost getting rid of that and using your imagination a little bit and that vision to redefine, okay, the game that I want to play as a filmmaker, as a, starting my own small business, as learning how to surf.
Yeah.
You got to restart. Okay, that's the new game. And nobody plays, and it's my backyard, and I'm making up the rules kind of thing.
Yeah. I think you're kind of hinting more at have that beginner's mind when trying.
Yeah.
Like, don't worry about how your brother did it or your dad did it
Yeah.
or your neighbor does it. Like, just go out and try how you think it should be done. Just go out and do the best you can.
Yeah.
In whatever perspective that is. I'm sure you're going to have, external things, something you watched, something you read, something someone taught you, something that will impact how you do it.
Yeah.
But your unique perspective is where you have to begin. Yeah. Wherever you are is the only place you can begin.
Yeah.
I think is that idea.
Yeah. No, completely. Good summary.
Yep. I think that beginner's mindset is great to have. But there's got to be something too of, worrying about others, of like keeping score of where you are in the race, of where you are in life, of worried about all these external things. I think that impacts this question. So I don't know if that's our second or third, but what do you think?
Yeah, I think it's that. It was kind of hinting at it as well. With that beginner's mindset, it's using your kind of like, it's almost, we've talked before on this podcast about what goes in your ears is important to what, how you're feeling. And in this case also, it's shutting that out, that inner voice, that inner competition that comes from other people's perspective, and understanding that your life, you're the only one running that race. You're the only one playing that game. And whether that means you're starting at 0 and you're going from there, that's a whole different scale than, like I said before, Tommy or Elaine or Marcus. Like, it's a whole different game. And so if we can have that mindset of Shane's game, Shane's dream is his. Nobody else is playing with me. It's my thing.
Yeah.
That can help us remember every day when we go to, take that first step or do the scary thing. It's like, but nobody else is playing Shane's game.
Yeah.
Nobody else can win because I'm playing that game. Yeah. I'm the only one playing.
Right. Yeah. It's you can only control what you can control. You can only live your life.
Yeah.
You can't live in others. I love that as a second how.
Yeah.
What about, the ability to do your best each day, of like, okay, all you can do is do your best, within this, comparatively to worried about, okay, I might not win this.
Yeah.
I might lose. I might get hurt. I might hurt someone.
Yeah.
Where does that come into this?
Man, it's a difficult question. I think that similarly, like we talked about in the analogy when we started, the reason that referees don't love was our original song that we kind of took this idea from. They're scared of potentially getting hurt themselves. They want to stay a little bit in the action, but a little bit far enough away. They have no skin in the game, right? And it's a great tie-in for what we talked about last week of, the fruits of your labor. This stuff that you do day in and day out, there's a chance that, man, you get day 5 or something like that. Maybe you did the work and that video for that vlog that you're trying to start, it didn't go as well as you thought it was going to go.
Yeah.
And that can hurt. It crushes, right?
Totally.
Put in that hard work and it doesn't pan out. But I think that when we're talking about those daily keeping going, you have to look at it in that singular game of how much better am I than I was 5 days ago just from playing.
Yeah.
Just from getting in the game, I'm better off than I was 5 days ago. And who cares if in whatever standards I had, it didn't work out.
Yeah. I think just fully understanding that, okay, the opportunity of just playing is tremendously better from playing than sitting on the sidelines.
Yeah.
You can't win if you're not playing. The idea of loss as ultimate failure, that's just not true. Like it is a lesson learned in that moment where you can improve. So I think just the idea of how important it is to be playing.
Yeah. Also, just on that topic, before we leave that last note, how interesting is it that as a child, your parents sign you up for sports, a lot of times that maybe you don't like.
Sure.
We played a lot of sports growing up, so it worked out well for us. But really, it's the lessons that you learn. You're going to lose, teamwork, the importance of hard work, dealing with adversity.
Yep.
And then as adults, it's like, oh, we got to put our kids either in, could be, whatever that learning thing is, right? Their passions, extracurriculars.
Yeah.
As adults, you forget the importance of just signing up to play. Because you're like, but when it comes to your kids, no brainer, right? Think about all the lessons they'll learn. Think about how much better off they'll be.
How important it is for you to play. Yeah.
Yeah.
Love that. Okay. Why are we talking about keeping score today?
Man. For me, I think it can be so easy to get inside of my own head. And I think that third point, which is so important, of just starting to play, you're going to be not good.
Yeah.
And I think that like most people, I can get in a space where it's easy to care a lot about what other people think of my work or what I do or who I am. And in reality, when I do just play and I do the things that I enjoy doing, it almost always works out in that I learn something about myself or I surprise myself, which is the only person that matters of impressing.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. For me, it's like, okay, if it's something you love, something you're passionate about, no matter the loss. So I think that as a reminder for me to not let fear dictate a decision.
Yeah.
Is what I wanted to remember.
Yeah, that's great. So let's do a little bit of a recap. So today we talked about keeping score, kind of this analogy about getting in the game, potentially these referees of life or the rules, standards of life.
Yeah, if you are the referee, you're not able to win. You're not actually playing.
Yeah.
And you can't lose either.
Exactly. And some of the, hardships of just starting and thinking about, oh man, well, so-and-so did it this way, but I'm not doing it that way. Am I wrong because my brother or, the neighbor is doing better than me? It's very hard to kind of determine what these standards or rules are. Yeah. But just playing is the important part.
Yeah, totally. Then we went into our house. Our first how was really just to have that beginner's mindset of wherever you are today is where you have to start.
Yeah.
So with having that, it's like you can't lose because you're inexperienced. So just having that understanding of, okay, you could surprise yourself and win and be good at this, or you could lose and take this as a lesson.
Yeah, completely. And then as our second step, we talked about...
It was really just like being less naive or scared to start.
Yeah.
Of like having that understanding of where you are. You can't really be hurt no matter what.
Yeah.
From just playing the game.
Yeah. And then thirdly, like we just said, it's all about just playing in general.
Yeah.
Get out there and just do one thing. Just do whatever it is that you love, that you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And like we said, that little tiff at the end, your parents would have no hesitancy to put you in sports and in band, etc.
Just like you should be involved in your own life.
Yes, exactly.
Cool. And then our whys. My why was really just around a reminder of how important it is to pursue the things that you love.
Yeah.
To be involved in your own life, not to sit on the sidelines and keep score, so to say.
Completely. And then I just thought about, how it can be so easy for me to compare myself to others, get inside of my own head, and then never start, when in reality, the only person that I should be worried about impressing is myself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think that wraps another week of
What is Humans. Thanks, guys.